Hello, everyone. It's my voice. It's so strong. Hey, my name is David Benaviv. I am more comfortable being close to you guys, if you don't mind. And I am responsible for CRM at Coppel. After 20 years in the financial services, doing data and risk management, I moved to the light, to the CRM, to CRM and the customer centricity. And today I would like to talk to you about how can we make personalization at scale, right? And how to achieve success on personalization. Because sometimes we do a lot of personalization, but maybe we don't know if we are getting where we want to go and if we are getting the results that we want to get. So just a quick survey. So if you can raise your hand, who is in the retail business? Only one. Who is in the personalization? Into personalization? Only one. Okay. 2, 3 over there. Okay. So give me a little. Let me give you a little bit of context. Is it okay if Alex? Is it okay if I stand here because I think it's okay? Okay. So a little bit of context. What is Coppel or Coppel as it is pronounced in English? So Coppel is the largest retailer in Mexico. It's the largest retailer in Mexico, sorry. And we have about 1,800 stores. I just realized that by the number of stores, we are the largest retailer in the whole Americas. So we have a lot of mini stores, department stores that they are full stores with clothes and furniture and electronics and everything. And the interesting thing is that we have a financial arm. We are the second largest credit card issuers in Mexico in terms of credit cards that we issue with the customers. So we have this mix of financial and retail services. And we have also, of course, our e-commerce. But funny, it is 94% of our total revenue is coming from transactions that happens within the store. So basically, our e-commerce is very important, is very strong. We have noticed that customers that digitalize, that they start to use the digital channels, they become more valuable, about 40% more valuable than the customers that only use the store, the physical store. But the e-commerce has become more as a display to showcase our products to our customers, and then they can go and buy into the stores. So the ROPO, the research online, purchase offline, is huge in the case of Coppel. So how do we do personalization? And we have this personalization being done via paid media, Meta and social networks, and we spend a lot of money in that. But it is quite expensive if you measure sales by spend. So it is a lot. Doing personalization through direct channels, as we do, is about twice as profitable. So how many of you do personalization through direct channels? Or are planning to do? Only 1, 2, 3? Okay, not that much, surprisingly. But this is a lot cheaper because you have your own data. So you have your own channels and you have a direct communication and you have a relationship with your customer. So you can speak more close to the customer. So that's how we use personalization. So the next question is, also as a context, why to scale? Why do we want to scale? And just 3 main ideas. If you scale, you can be more precise. So you are not trying to saturate customers with hundreds of messages, and because they will lose attention to you. You will lose relevance for them. So you better you want to scale to do smaller segments, then into the personalization, and be more specific in the message to your customers. The second one is learning as much as more campaigns you execute, you have more data. And also for measurement. When you can scale and you can be, let's say, continuous in the communication with the customer, you can start measuring customer value instead of just sales value. And that's another thing that I would like to give you as a context. Maybe you already know everything about this, but how does it work? Yeah, yes it is, it does. So this is an old story that I think I will move here. Safer. Just so why do we want to just an old story that we already know, from traditional marketing to personalization and then to scalable personalization. And just to remember, personalization in traditional marketing, it's just a matter of having as most impressions as we could with the investment that we have at hand. So there is no real measurement of what is the incremental value of the traditional marketing. So the discussions are, I have these dollars and I want as most impression as possible to more or less rationalize target, but you are not, of course, you cannot define, you cannot guarantee that it is going to the right customer. While in personalization, we started to do, segmented campaigns, but they were isolated, and we started to measure some improvements. Yes, but if you do isolated campaigns, just scattered campaigns across customers, you cannot measure the real value of personalization. When you do scalability, you can be more close to individual decisions, and more important, now you can measure the long-term customer value. We will talk a little bit more about that, but if you take a holdout group, a control group, all the time for this communication, then you can compare. And you can compare on not only the incremental sales, the response rates of the customers, but you can then monitor the value of these customers that you communicated versus the customers that you didn't. So, if we want to scale the truth that we face, that we learned at Coppel after 5 years of doing this, is that it is not really a matter of technology, of having the best technology, of having SaaS or having CI360, even if it's a very good tool. So a lot of things need to happen to do personalization at the scale. So the responses operating model, and I would like you to talk about the operating model in the typical elements of an operating model, and to show you what has been not working and what has been working for us at Coppel in this process. So first, just as a context, we have cross-functional teams that they are focused in specific business goals, right? So they don't do personalization for everything. They keep their minds in one goal. For example, we have this activation team. We have this, we call it usage or retention team. But we also have this team that is dedicated to the cross-sell of financial services. Now we have more. And we also have a team that is dedicated to digitalization. Remember that we have an incremental value of the digitalized customers. So let's start with people. What haven't worked for us in the past? First, in the organization. The organization, if you have a product-centric organization, the discussions are, okay, I have this product or this line of products, and each category of the products will be wanting to communicate as much as possible. They are not worried about a customer value. They are worried about the sales of their own product. So imagine a retailer that we have about 50 different categories, product categories, and for the retail, merchandise categories, plus 12 different financial services products. So we have about 60 people, 60 teams all the time wanting to communicate as much as possible their own product. So they don't care about saturation. They just care about having the most impressions of the product, right? While when you have a customer-centric organization, the discussion comes as, okay, I have this customer, I know what this customer wants, and I will find what is the best product within my portfolio of products for this customer at this specific moment. And it changed radically. It has been painful. I don't know, just how many of you do you think that you are working for a customer-centric company, a real customer-centric company? Not me. No, because it's we all want to be, but it is not within our guts to be, because we are pursuing the sales for the next quarter, not the real customer value. And the other one is return-oriented, as reach-oriented. There is much of the same. So marketing is trying to get reach, not to get returns. And the other thing is the team readiness. And it has been also very, it has been a learning curve, because, when we were doing a personalization and coming from the analytics side, we think that analytics will do everything. Will do everything for us. That the segments, the audiences, the models, everything. But it happens not to be true. So you need the right amount of also creativity and this connection with the customer, this feeling with the customer. So you need both things. So we had hard times trying to get creative guys to learn the basics of analytics. And we have hard times trying to get the data scientists into creativity and understanding the customer. So the missing link there has been the business understanding. So we are trying to be sure that both sides, they understand the equations, the basic equations of the business and how it's done. So and also to measure every campaign to be sure that every one of them is, well, not everyone, it's possible, but the most of them can be profitable. So what about the process? Again, it is not a matter of sending campaigns. Where I come from Coppel, there is this strong marketing sense of building the campaigns according to seasonality and the big events, Black Friday, Christmas, right? And that's the planning of marketing. What we have learned in Coppel about personalization and profitable personalization and scalable personalization is that we're independent of those plannings. So we plan use cases for the whole year. We plan the use cases that can be repeated continuously over time. And yes, we align to the overall marketing strategy. So when we are sending communication during Christmas, of course, everything is branded as Christmas, right? But we still prioritizing the need of the customer. And then, so planning occurs then differently. So we also have a strong part of learning in use that arrow that goes from measurement to planning, because lesson learned are a key part of our planning. Then comes the execution, where we have these three different areas that are clearly, there are three different types of work that are clearly different. We used to have them in one person. So we used to have like a mini personalization department in each one of our personalization strategies. So they should know audiences, they should know about content, they should know about how to manage the channels, but it becomes a lot more complicated because then you need some analytics basic background to do audiences, but you need this creativity that I was talking about, but you need to understand about that we use up to 8 channels, but we mostly use email, the app push, WhatsApp, that is not very popular in US, but in Mexico is very, very wide, it's very strong. SMS, RCS, we use them a lot. So and also the web page and the app as ways to communicate to the customer. So having someone to learn about all the channels and what are the tricks and the best practices of each channel was almost impossible. So then we defined 3 different roles within each team. So we have a team that is responsible of audiences, a team that is responsible for creativity, and the team that is responsible for the channels. And what happened was surprisingly good because they are now more open to understand a wider set of campaigns without becoming responsible of all campaigns. As I mentioned, we have these squads. So they understand a lot more of the campaigns, and it has strengthened the relationships in the team, and they work more closely, right? And measurement, which is crucial, and I would like to dedicate a slide here. In personalization, I guess that the best success that we have had in personalization in Coppel is measurement. We developed our own measurement method. Last click non-direct didn't work for a physical store. So we had to develop our own measurement and to be very, very conservative about the incremental value that we have in the communicated group versus the control group. And therefore, we could prove, statistically talking, mathematically talking, what was the incremental value. And then we subtracted the expenses, and we get the EBITDA of all the whole operation and operation expenses and the communication expenses. And we went to a net profit of each campaign. So, and from that net profit of each campaign, we sum up, and it happens to be that it is a profitable shop, a very profitable shop. And we have, and we exceed our investment in terms of communication, our investment in terms of technology, our investment in terms of people by far. So we can prove to the company that is profitable, and then we can get more support. So, and of course, we at Coppel, personalization is within the customer office. So customer office has the mission of keeping as much as possible active customers. So we measure the incremental customers and the value of these customers. We measure the value of each customer every month for all customers, and so we have to monitor that this value is increasing. And it has, fortunately. So when coming into data and analytics, when I started doing CRM and building this personalization shop, the first thing that I was thinking was, we need a CDP. We need customer information that we want to collect all the information that is available from the customer, and then to see what was there, what was in there. And then comes the inspiration about the use cases to exploit that data. And it was so costly, and it could have taken years to get there. So what we decided, it was my boss actually who gave us that instruction, who happens to be a stakeholder. He's Coppel. He's a Coppel, right? So he said, no. I want first to get use cases that will produce money, right? So, and don't build a CDP, just get the variables, just get the information, that is the minimum necessary information to activate those use cases, to operate those use cases. So we built, instead of building a CDP, we had this, our data mart within marketing automation and then CI360. So we started to only to collect the variables that were relevant and to collect the models that were created by the data scientists, propension models, product recommendation models, next best offer, churn, customer value, everything that was created by the scientists, and to be imported into our data mart to activate that. Only that, not more. So what we achieve is, at the end of, for across 3 years, of course it has grown a lot, but it is still being a lot less expensive and difficult to manage than having a CDP, right? One important thing here is that we clearly define that the audience definition should be within the personalization, within marketing, not within the data scientists. Again, data scientists are very good at modeling, but when you want to sit and think, okay, I have this motorcycle that I want to sell, and I have these customers that they need a motorcycle. So what is the best use case to make these customers that need a motorcycle to buy a motorcycle? It is not just to send a motorcycle or send motorcycles to everyone, right? You have to think about creativity. When are you going to send that? So what is information that you want to include into that offer for it to be relevant for the customer? So that audience definition is key part, as I was mentioning in the process. So the audience definition is within personalization, not within the data scientist, the analytics team. Okay, and technology. Of course, we have CI360, and it has grown with us. I think that one of the things that we love the most about CI360 is flexibility. You know, some other tools, they are not flexible enough to include these store processes with business decisions that we would like to include within the process. For example, we have this challenge. We have this challenge of a use case where we send twice a month one category being recommended, actually one product class being sent to our customers twice a month. So we have 400 different classes, and we have more than 9 million of our customers to be personalized. So we want to include a lot of business decisions of how to select the right SKU for this customer class, and then to tie it to the customer, to the right customer. So it has been challenging. So what we have found out is that CI360 is flexible enough for us to write some code and to do some store processes, and to have these decisions being integrated into the process for the analysts to be transparent for them. Of course, as somebody was mentioning in a conference yesterday, there is not one tool that can do it all. So we have also in our tech stack, we have Adobe for content, and we have also SAP Immersis, now it's SAP Engagement Cloud, for real-time emails, transactional emails, that could be easier through that. Also in measurement, our own developed models, measurement models, these incremental value models that were developed inside Coppel, they could be easily installed within the CI360, the SaaS environment. And of course, to be honest, we haven't got as much as agentic AI as we would like to. But from this conference that we're having here in this SaaS Innovate, I've learned a lot, thanks to Mac here. And we really want to be the next in line to install agentic AI. And where I see that agentic AI will be more helpful around this process. First, here at the audiences, you know, Mac just gave an explanation there at the Innovation Hub about this agentic AI that will help these personalization analysts that are not data scientists to write these natural language prompts based on a brief, so they can create these audiences easier. Then for the content, of course, Adobe has some tools. There is additional tools that we have in Coppel besides Adobe to create content according to the customer needs, the customer profile. And actually, I am very interested in something that Rob was saying the other day, that maybe we can create the profile of the customer within CI360 using agentic AI to then go and Adobe to produce it, right, and get it back. And measurement, so analyzing tons of data, maybe not as intuitive for these marketeers in personalization. So having this agentic AI that could help them to understand what the results are showing. It's very, very important. So, and the last part, that it's governance. When we send about 7 billion messages to our customers every year. So having so much messages being sent to our customers and in through many channels could easily result in saturation and lack of relevance, and could result in customers blocking our messages or just ignoring them, right? So it's very important to have some governance. And as we have many squads doing personalization at the same time, and also remember that we have communication being sent by collections to these customers, and so it has been challenging to get all this order and governance. So we created this governance area that we named a control tower, like an airport. So they are monitoring everything that is happening, and is trying to control what is being sent to the customer and the quality of what is being sent to the customer. So they manage these contact policies. They monitor the actual customer experience. So they receive all the communication, and they see that everything is working and how the customer sees it. And also they have become the experts of the channels. So they are experts on channels, on trying to understand the best practices of every channel and communicate it to the teams of personalization to do their job correctly. So I would like to share this use case. This is a real use case developed by my team member here. She's smiling at the beautiful use case about babies. But, well, we like it very much. We call it mundos, which is Spanish for worlds or for realms, if you want to use that word. So what we wanted to achieve at this level of personalization is not just to recommend one product based in the browsing or purchasing of another product. That can be done statistically very easily. That is done everywhere. But what we would try to achieve is to identify the moment of need of the customer. Remember that we are looking to be most customer-centric, not just to sell products, and to be together with the customer along their life cycle, their life cycle, or the moment of their life. So what we did is to understand what was the need state. In this case, we have this baby. This is the baby, Mundo del Bebé, of the world of the baby. And what we have is that we curated what should be the content, the right content for a family that has a baby at home. So, of course, we put products with discounts, but we made a mix of products that should be relevant for the family, for the baby, according to its age. So we have clothing, we have toys, we have furniture, and also we have some additional content that here's what is the best toy, or what is the nutrition tips for my baby. So this additional information. We were deeply impressed by Gartner conference, where they show some statistics that when you send useful information to your customers, not only the product, but useful information for them, the response rate increases by 30%. So we want to include that into the communication. So instead of sending just the product, we need the need state and then create an experience. Right now, actually, Marielos is building a journey so we can keep track of the baby's age. You know, there are some magazines or some sites, some podcasts that they follow, or they send you emails according to the baby of your child. We want to do that for babies, but we want to do that for motorcycles. We want to do that for cell phones. We want to do that for sporting goods, for fitness. All fitness. Fitness is also very, very, very good mundo that is working very well. So how did we implement this use case according to our operating model? Okay, in planning, we made the design of the use case, like an internal brief of that. We have the audiences collecting all the purchases signals to collect the predictive models produced by the analytics team, to understand the affinity products, the statistical affinities between products, the baskets, and then to create the content, as you saw on the last slide, and also to orchestrate the communications through many channels. Basically, almost every campaign that we send, we at least send it by 2 channels. So one low cost, like email or the push app, and one with cost with an incremental cost like an SMS or RCS, which has proven to be very, very profitable and very good experience. RCS, I understand that for iOS it's not available yet, the RCS experience, but the ones that you use Android, which is very, very popular in Mexico, more than in US, has a very good reach and a very good experience, because you can include images, you can include carousels, so it's very, very good experience. And then the magic, when we have the incremental measurement. So for every campaign that we send, we measure how many customers did we activated versus the control group. What is the net profit of the campaign? What is the ROS, the return on advertisement spent? One tip or one experience that I would like to share with you that is not, of course, in the presentation is that, of course, you cannot make all the campaigns to be profitable. It's impossible. So we are around having maybe between 40 and 50% of the campaigns being profitable, but that's enough. Remember that you have to test a lot. You have to test and test and test. So, of course, a lot of tests will not be profitable at first. So, the 3 main messages that I would like you to convey today is an operating model is, when we're trying to scale personalization, the operating model is more important than having only technology. The second one is that you want to manage decisions around a customer and a moment of need, not campaigns. And the third one is that you want to measure incrementality in terms of the business, not just the amount of activity that you may have. Well, thank you very much. I don't know, maybe we have time for a couple of questions if there are some here at the audience. If you have any question you would like to share. Yes, of course. Helen. Remember that we issue credit for making purchase. Yes, about 70% of our sales are done to our own credit customers, and also we have our e-commerce, so that we get those customers signing in. Yeah. Any other question? Well, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.